Parts of Europe are experiencing the fifth heat wave of the year. Extremely high temperatures, over 35 Celsius, are expected across large parts of the continent today, as the latest spell of intense heat reaches its peak, bringing severe and excessive heat to the UK, France, Italy and parts of Central Europe. Europe is the world's fastest warming continent due to climate change. There's a rare amber warning for extreme heat in force across a large swathe of the UK. The Met Office says temperatures could climb into the high 30s in the English Midlands, East and South East. Amber heat health alerts, which warn of significant impacts to health and social care services, are already in place until Friday evening. Our climate editor, Justin Rolat, reports.
The Royal College of Nursing said today scores of calls to its advice line described nursing staff trying to care for patients in hospitals and care homes where temperatures have been regularly topping 30 degrees this summer. It says one staff member collapsed from dehydration during a shift and ended up being admitted as a patient to the organisation they worked for. It comes as all of England is now under an amber heat health alert that runs until tomorrow evening.
We do worry that people are getting used to the heat and maybe not taking as many protective actions as they might have done in earlier heat waves. So I would like to just reiterate that it's really important for people to continue to take protective action. That includes drinking plenty of water, taking water with you, and trying not to go out in the hottest hours of the day.
The Prime Minister chaired an emergency COBRA meeting yesterday on the continuing heat, drought and wildfires and the growing risk from climate change. Andy Burnham said the government is considering restrictions on disposable barbecues as fire crews face increasingly dangerous conditions. In the New Forest, crews were still working yesterday to contain a blaze 4 days after it started. And with nearly 3/4 of England and all of Wales now in drought, water supplies are under increasing strain.
Well, it is pressured, and it's come after the pressures that we've had in previous summers, so 2022, 2025 and now 2026. Although we had a pretty decent rainfall over the winter, parts of the region didn't receive enough to recharge fully, including Norfolk. So we do have a challenging situation emerging right now, both in terms of the level of demand on our system, but also in Norfolk, we've got rivers running at very low levels.
There is a brief respite ahead, though. Temperatures will begin to ease tomorrow, and there could even be rain early next week. But later in August, there is the chance of high pressure returning, with temperatures again above average, making a record warm summer this year increasingly likely. Justin Rolat, BBC News.
Our Europe correspondent Nick Beake told us about the impacts on European infrastructure.
This is a fifth heat wave of the summer, already a record-breaking summer, because just this week the EU's climate service have said that June and July were the warmest on record in Western Europe. And so with it, talking about the impact, comes obviously, first of all, the immediate threat to health, particularly for the elderly in many countries across Europe, but also the heightened risk of fires. And clearly we've seen this summer the devastating impact of wildfires. And just looking at some of the temperatures across Europe today, it's got to be said a lot of places are experiencing similar temperatures in mainland Europe to that of the UK. But if we look at Bordeaux, for example, temperature there could get up to 40 degrees. Obviously they had fires there, devastating fires not long ago, and also near Madrid as well, looking like mid to late 30s, and there were wildfires there. So yes, it is hot once more, but worth pointing out we're way off the records we saw earlier in the summer. That was something like 45 degrees in France and Spain, so mercifully not at that sort of level.
And so there have been some extraordinary sights, haven't there, of rivers drying up, and that's had an effect on power distribution, because they also use sometimes the rivers to cool the power stations. Tell us more about the infrastructure and how that's under pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really important one to stress. And if you look at what's happening in Romania today, their only nuclear power station is temporarily being shut down. That normally would generate about 20% of the country's electricity. But because there is a lack of water to cool that facility sufficiently, they've had to take that decision. And so other measures will come into play. But also, if we're talking about the water level across Europe, you've got major rivers like the Danube and the Rhine. They've seen a real reduction in the water level level there. That has been problematic for a lot of the larger vessels that would normally transport products all across Europe. In some cases, they've had to have smaller boats come out and transport stuff, but in other cases, they haven't been able to move things. And so there is an impact there in the short term, but also increasingly European countries and governments talking about the economic hit in the medium to long term. Some economists pointing out that potentially growth this year in Europe may effectively be wiped out because of the hot period here. So on lots of levels, quite a bit of concern, Lauren.
Our BBC weather presenter Simon King is in Wolverhampton in central England.
It's going to be very hot again today. In fact, today is be hotter than the last few days. We've got this amber warning from the Met Office affecting the Midlands, where I am this morning, across eastern and southeastern areas of England. Widely across England and Wales today, temperatures getting into the high 20s to low 30s, but it's for these areas in the Midlands, east, southeast England, mid to high 30s. We could see temperatures 37, maybe 38 degrees Celsius. It comes on the back of what has been really a record-breaking summer so far. We're on track to see the hottest UK summer on record, but already we've had multiple records. We've had the hottest June day, 38 degrees Celsius. We've had the most number of days where the temperature has been above 30 degrees. That's now 37 days, and also the most number of days where the temperature has exceeded 36 degrees Celsius. So the records keep on coming. Yesterday in Wales, we had the hottest August day on record. I could go on, but climate scientists are quite clear that the summer that we're seeing this year, it's unprecedented, it's record-breaking, but it could become normal in 20, 30 years' time. So what we're experiencing now in terms of the drought across many parts of England and Wales, the heat, will become something we'll have to all get used to in the future.
And is there any prospect of rain just in the near future? Farmers and others very keen to know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been so dry as well. That's the other part of the story, isn't it? Of course, in southern England, there's been hardly any rain recorded in the last 2 months. It's going to stay dry for the next few days across these southern areas, but there are signs that we could see some rain into next week. An area of low pressure will move in across the UK. Most of the rain will be across northern areas, but there will be some at least, I think, for southern areas. Not a huge amount of rainfall, not enough really to turn these parched grounds and gardens from brown to green overnight, but at least there will be some rain, and it'll be very welcome rain. By the end of August, however, signs are that it will become drier again and potentially hotter again. So, of course, you can still get heat waves at the end of summer, end of August, and well into September as well. So we've still got quite a lot of this summer weather, this warmth potentially to come this year.
I spoke to Professor Nicola Ranger, General Secretary and Chief Executive of the Royal College of Nursing. I asked her what nurses are telling her about their experiences with the heat.
They're terribly worried and about not just themselves, but about their patients and the people that they're looking after. They are describing intolerable conditions. We know that many of our hospital infrastructure in the UK, and particularly in England, is not really fit for purpose with regard to this kind of heat. So very concerning examples of terrible conditions from our nurses.
So what are the hospitals or the workplaces doing to try to improve that?
Well, that's our concern, actually. We've had examples of leadership saying, actually, we can't give you fans because we're worried about the impact on the electricity in the hospital. We've got examples where air conditioning units haven't been, either don't exist or they're broken, no access to cold water to be able to drink, just tepid water, no ice, no ability to be able to keep nurses hydrated. So some really quite stark examples of where, sadly, the infrastructure and the will to get things better for nursing staff just isn't there in some organisations.
And what are you asking for to improve this? Because presumably if they do improve the air conditioning or ventilation, there's going to be a cost attached to that.
There is, and I think we all know that sadly the infrastructure and the estate of many NHS organisations is not as it should be. We know that We learnt that during the pandemic, actually. But what we've got to do is invest in the infrastructure. I thought many of us are pretty sure that the extreme heat is not something that will just happen this year. So what's going to be something that we need to invest in? The infrastructure. And we want to be able to have air conditioning units, fans, just basic way for people like nurses and the patients to be able to stay comfortable, because at the moment the intolerable conditions for many nurses is just totally and utterly unacceptable. And I think there's got to be a real concerted effort by NHS employers and leaders to imagine what it's actually like to be a nurse and work 12.5-hour shifts in this extreme heat.